Hey folks, how's it going? This is Mike, and I'm back to do probably a very brief video. This is my movie for the year 1956. Okay, continuing that series of film for each year of my life. And before I get started on the film, the music in the background, if you can hear it, because it's kind of quiet, it's by Brian Eno. It's called Music for Films, an album from 1978. Okay, seems very appropriate for what we're doing. And okay, 1956. There isn't anything else I could possibly pick from that year except my favorite science fiction movie of all time, which is Forbidden Planet. Okay, Forbidden Planet, which I have in this wonderful 50th anniversary tin box set that has lobby card reproductions and it has all kinds of extra features. It's supposed to have a little miniature of Robbie the Robot, but I lost Robbie. I have no idea. I used to have him on display right here in my dining room up on the shelf, and I have no idea where Robbie went to, but he'll turn up somewhere, I hope. So anyway, Forbidden Planet, for me, I've said this before, and I think I got this from somebody else, but to me it is the Citizen Kane of science fiction. Just the greatest science fiction movie ever made. And I know that in recent years, because of the advent of great special effects and such realistic graphic imagery, I know it has been surpassed in so many ways, but for me it was such a landmark at the time, 1956, that they would do something like this. And I think part of the reason why it was so marvelous is because it was made by MGM, which had a reputation for the highest quality, and they had the best technicians. It's interesting that in the 1950s, when the Hollywood studio system was starting to have trouble and start to break apart, mainly because of the influence of television, MGM was at the very peak of its ability to produce quality product. And they showed that so many times, especially in their musicals. Well, they applied all of that MGM know-how to this science fiction film, and they were not known at all for science fiction. And it just had a marvelous result. There was a phrase at MGM, a motto. It was do it right, do it big, and give it class. And that's exactly what they did with Forbidden Planet. And they used contract players. They used Walter Pidgeon, who had been a star of MGM films all through the 1940s, and that marvelous Shakespearean voice, very appropriate, considering that the story was based on William Shakespeare's The Tempest. Okay, screenplay by Cyril Hume, directed by a man named Fred MacLeod Wilcox, who I don't know very much about. He directed a series of films, mainly at MGM, through the 40s and up into the 50s. And I don't know how well known he was at the time. He directed films like The Courage of Lassie, The Secret Garden, but Forbidden Planet was his penultimate film. He only directed one more film, a low-budget exploitation film in 1960 called I Passed for White, and that was the end of his career as a film director. Maybe he directed in television, I'm not sure. But he passed away in the year 1964 at the age of 56. But so he did such a wonderful job with Forbidden Planet. And they also had Anne Francis, who was an MGM contract player and slowly building up a really good, prolific career as an actress, and Leslie Nielsen, who was just starting out, who of course later became known as a great comedic actor, but in those days he was being, groomed as a young leading man type. And they also had great character actors at the time like Jack Kelly, Richard Anderson, Warren Stevens, Earl Holliman, and of course they also had this marvelous creature called Robbie the Robot, which there's just never been a robot like Robbie. And he was used in some other things at MGM, which are also in this package. They made another film the following year called The Invisible Boy, where Robbie made another appearance. And I admit that's the one thing in this package that I haven't watched all the way through yet, but I will get around to it. He also was used in an episode of an MGM TV show called The Thin Man, which I think ran for maybe a year. It had Peter Lawford and Phyllis Kirk, and it has that on the disc. It's really a lot of fun. And I don't know, there's so many things about this movie that I love, and I think it's just the fact that it was very serious. it had an amazing use of color and the music, especially by a husband and wife team named Louis and Bibi Baron, who were discovered by MGM president Dory Sherry in a beatnik club of all places. They were experimenting with electronic sounds, and he hired them on the spot to do the music for Forbidden Planet. And of course, on the credits, it's not called music; it's called electronic tonalities, right? So they just did something years ahead of people like Kraftwerk and the kind of electronic music that started becoming well known in the 1970s. They were the first to do it. It was pretty amazing. I don't know. I just don't know what else I can say about the movie except that I love it, and will probably always think that it is the best. I was lucky enough to see it on the big screen. I think it was way back in the 1970s. And you have to realize that as I've said before, I never experienced color TV until 1968. So when I was growing up in the late 50s, early 60s, and I had a chance to see this wonderful picture on TV, it was always in black and white. So the imagination had to come into play for a long time, and it did. It worked. There are a lot of people who love this film as well, and you find that out on some of the extra features. There's a documentary that was made by Turner Classic Movies. Let's see the title of it, and it's on here. It's called Watch the Skies. Watch the Skies, Science Fiction, the 50s, and Us. And it features people like Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Ridley Scott, and they're all talking about how much this film and a lot of the other science fiction films of the 1950s influenced them to do what they did later on in films, and how much they love those things. And there's also another documentary strictly about Forbidden Planet. It's called Amazing, Exploring the Far Reaches of Forbidden Planet. And it has interviews with Leslie Nielsen, Anne Francis, Warren Stevens, Richard Anderson, Earl Holliman, also directors like Joe Dante, James Landis, and John Carpenter, all talking about Forbidden Planet and how much they loved it. So, and there's also another documentary all about the creation of Robbie the Robot, how they did it, what they used, and just all kinds of stuff. And I can't recommend this enough to anybody who loves the science fiction movies of the 1950s. Of course, you already know about this and you already appreciate it. But some of you might think that, you know, anything made in the 50s was kind of schlocky and cheesy, and well, a lot of it was. But I think Forbidden Planet has a place just at the top. It's up here somewhere, you know. And just highly recommend it. Give it a chance. I think you might like it. And I will now shut up. That is my movie for 1956, Forbidden Planet. Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome. See you next time.